What's something your employer did that instantly killed employee morale? Old folks home kitchen. Maybe 20 staff members. Boss declared we were too happy and made a new set of rules. Degrees there was to be absolutely no talking, laughing or jokes. The kitchen was to be silent because we were distracting ourselves from work. Anyone working less than 9 or 10-hour shifts were forbidden bathroom breaks. Going to the bathroom on a shift with less than 9 or 10 hours was a fireable offense. Permitted bathroom breaks could not be on the clock. Your lunch must be used to use the bathroom. Lunch breaks were 15 minutes long. Any communication with management was seen as inappropriate. Staff and management were to be kept separate at all times. A manager fricked a staff member and it made a big deal. That's why this was made. Yeah, will not be paid overtime but will be expected to work. If you are to clock out by 8 PM but are still needed, you must clock out then return to work. Complaints to HR or labor board are fireable offenses. Yes, people complained. Yes, the place was investigated. Ex-boss was sued. Lost. Morale dropped. They have a hard time keeping employees now, and from what I heard most of the new employees are high school students. Ex-boss announced a sudden retirements for the end of the year and the kitchen will be taken over by all new people. I jumped ship early on. Do not miss the place. Report them to the labor board. Half of that crap is illegal. New store manager took a store that was already operating at profit with happy employees and completely redid a bunch of policies. Where before we were all encouraged to help in any department if we were knowledgeable and had time, people started getting written up for wandering too far from their own departments, getting in trouble for taking overtime to finish assigned task lists in full before leaving, or getting in trouble for leaving on time without finishing the list. Being encouraged by one manager to take overtime and they'd approve it, then getting in trouble later because said manager never approved the overtime in our systems. Departments that once worked together on similar tasks now barred from helping each other unless directly instructed by management. A deliveries department that wouldn't fully pick their orders for customers then blamed the other departments for not having it available or generally leaving huge messes in those departments, never cleaning up after themselves, and the other departments getting in trouble for it. The list goes on. It took about a year to just completely drain that store's morale. Nobody there cares anymore besides the fresh faces, new hires, because they don't know what it was like before. No raises or bonuses this year due to company performance, but I will make it up to you by taking the whole company to the lake for a trip on my new 30-feet boat. So my just had this happen. Working in a call center, she was employee of the month, had some of their highest metrics, etc. She noticed she started getting back-to-back calls while everyone else was getting 15+ minutes of availability. Contacted her boss's boss, and was continually being reassured that the issue was getting looked into. Her being stressed and overworked went on for 3 months. Eventually, she messaged the regional manager, and it was fixed the very next day. My acting theory is that one of her managers placed her into a priority queue to make their own stats look better. But everything worked out, right? Nope. She got an email today stating that she wouldn't be getting her bonus because she was using ACW too much. It's a temporary state you can place yourself in which postpones you being placed into the call queue in order to finish up your work from the previous call. She literally had no choice because she got seconds between calls. Funny thing, she saved documentation of everything, threw her managers under the bus, quit, and got another job all in the same day. City charter school, lots of community members in aid positions and they kept the school together. About 20 teachers and staff were purged on a Black Friday about a month out from the school year. They were not given letters to return the next year and the place went ballistic, replacing almost half the staff when really, my principal didn't bother leaving his office and assessing the situations in the classrooms. Instead, he just fired teachers. I left after I was given an offer and he claimed I should be more loyal to those who gave you an opportunity. Bro, my 4 years of college and teaching license gave me the opportunity. Get out of here. I worked at a restaurant with a crap tip minimum, $2.63 an hour. We'd be penalized for being even 5 minutes late, so lots of us showed up 20-30 minutes early to make sure we'd avoid the penalty. This is Boston, so that was an appropriate gamble. I've gotten stuck on the T for 10-20 minutes on numerous occasions, and we just get right to work. and there's plenty to do when opening a big restaurant. So we'd clock in and start working. No one was clocking in and failing to work. In fact, I liked getting there early because the kitchen would get up to 113. Most of the morning prep occurred in the kitchen and was fairly rigorous. We didn't really air condition and had to wear long sleeved shirts and pants. So I could knock everything out in a tank and shorts, change into my uniform, and not start my shift a sweaty mess. The manager gave us a big lecture about how it adds up, even if it is only $2.63 an hour. She made a new rule that we couldn't clock in more than 10 minutes before our shift began, even if we were working. By the way, that's a 15-minute window of appropriate clocking in time in Boston. With the notoriously unreliably public transportation system, crazy weather, and overclogged roads. Frick Grafton Street and frick you, Ashley. MVP for naming the company. Plumbing shop. Newer owners came in. They were a married couple who had worked there for years and bought out the original owner. A few months later, as we are heading into Christmas, they called each employee in one at a time to explain how they, the employee, were getting a holiday bonus because the employee had messed something up earlier in the year. My reason was that I had broke a mirror in a customer's bathroom and it had cost $200 to replace, and they just couldn't afford to pay any bonuses. I brought in over $500,000 worth of business that year. Next week they drove up in a new sports car. Someone asked what it was and another plumber said it was a 2007 Christmas bonus. They've had a huge turnover in employees now. No one from when I worked there, 9408, is still there. CEO announced during a company-wide meeting that everyone would be getting raises and laid out exactly what money people would be on based on their job roles, even showing the structure on a PowerPoint, then didn't actually go through with any of it. Regarding how employees will travel between Site A and Site B. What if something happens to their kids? They will need a way back here, and sharing one vehicle between 8 people makes that difficult. They won't want to come back. They'll stay and work. No. Parents will 100% not care at all about what's happening at work when somebody calls and said there's something wrong with their kid. We don't need to invest in group transport. Then we bought a company van that employees don't like. The gang buys a van. At a company-wide meeting, 45 people called the employees an expense. Did not go over well at all. 2 people actually stood up and threatened to quit on the spot if the boss didn't reevaluate his statement and could explain what was wrong with it. This sounds like 90% of the school district meetings and state government meetings on education I attend. Apparently, if it wasn't for the teachers, all the students would be able to learn and pass the tests. Fired the 3 most likable productive people in the department to bring in their own people under the guise of downsizing and restructuring. The entire department quit within a month. Not me, but someone on my direct family works for Build-A-Bear as a chief workshop manager. The Pay Your Age event was horrendous for their team morale, and made several of them want to quit. Beyond just the main pie event, the next day the company sent out coupons for $15 off to everyone, not just the people who showed up and didn't get a bear, as a half-assed way of saying sorry we couldn't meet demand. It was a bull's marketing ploy and they knew full well what it would cause. So while being out of stock and utterly exhausted, the entire following week they had massive amounts of traffic and angry customers demanding to use the same printed coupons 4 times in a transaction. It's supposed to be 1 per customer, but there's nothing preventing someone from printing multiple copies and using it over and over in different transactions. Then their customer care team over the phone tells customers one thing while corporate tells the employees at the stores to do something else, and the store employees end up dealing with angry customers who were lied to. I've lost all respect for Build-A-Bear. I have a friend who manages a Build-A-Bear a few states south. She called me crying after her shift. That day was heck for her. Just started a new job that I love. Only problem is they're converting all of the office to open plan. Our area is up next for conversion. Everyone I've talked to is against it, and everyone I know that's currently working in it says it's terrible. The only people who don't have to sit in the open plan space are the people who champion it the most. Go figure. I can already see my productivity and morale tanking when I'm forced to hear every noise emitted by roughly 200 people in my section of the building. Open plan offices are the absolute dumbest idea ever conceived. I remember a company that did that. Everyone had their own private cubicles, and they could focus on getting their work done. Management switched to open plan and immediately started complaining that everyone was talking too much. Told us we were all replaceable. A staff of 20 poorly paid, but very caring, healthcare assistants in a private nursing home. Private sector means crap wage in UK, as not government mandated unlike NHS or county council. He was a drunken moron and I only stayed because his wife was the best nursing home owner I had ever worked for. Just had a blind spot with her drunk sot of a husband. Anyway, some of the older women, ones with husbands who had salaries rather than wages, stood up and left. Someone rang his wife and she came in. We didn't see him for 2 weeks and when we did see him she had busted him down to care assistant. I was his line manager and made him apologize to all of us. That's why the older ladies came back and nobody actually left. He killed morale but his wife, the brains, gave it the kiss of life. Worked at a trading shop where up to 80% of yearly comp was in the form of an end of year bonus. One year they decided that before the bonus was paid out, every employee had to sign a draconian non-compete agreement banning employment for 12 months at any competing firm. Oh, and you had to sign blind. Some folks signed and then were told they didn't get a bonus. That kind of crap has become so common in our economy, I'm not even shocked by it anymore. I just get sad, because it doesn't bode well for anyone, including those that think they've figured out how to game the system like this. I am not sure if this counts. I was interning on the Hill for a congressman that will go unnamed. As an intern your job is generally crap. Our only high point in the day were that we could choose what meetings we wanted to go to. The good ones had lots of food, we had an hour for lunch, and all the interns could go to lunch together. The congressman decided that was not how he wanted his office to be run. We were assigned the worst meeting to go to on the Hill. We only get 30 minutes for lunch and we had to go to lunch one at a time. We ended up fight over who got to go to lunch between 12 o'clock 2 o'clock every day. Some unlucky person would have to go to lunch at 4 PM. I worked in a lab with a lax lunch schedule. One Friday, there was a lull in work and 3 of us went across the street to eat lunch. My butthole boss got his feelings hurt because he wasn't explicitly invited and made a rule that only one person could go to lunch at a time. Me personally, I'm a security guard at a library. My boss said she wanted me moving around a lot, which is cool. I would get up every 15 minutes, patrol the entire building, then sit back down for another 15 minutes. It's not the busiest place so it seems to work out fine, especially since my co-workers always know how to get a hold of me. However, apparently a co-worker told my supervisor I was slacking off, and this co-worker's known for micromanaging people she has no control over, and wasn't doing my job properly. But instead of talking to me about it, my boss just says, "Oh, I meant constantly walking. 4 to 8 hours straight, no sitting down at all. Also we fired the only other security guard so you gotta take his shifts too. So other than a legally obliged 15-minute break, I'm supposed to be hiking all day long and assert my presence to the dozen or so patrons we have. I'm turning in my 2-week notice on Wednesday, and in the meantime I just take very long bathroom breaks." Would say things like I don't care, get it done, or just do it, like how the client asked when telling him why certain things wouldn't work out. Then the client would come back because it didn't work out. Once got one of my bosses, ex-BFF, to admit I knew it wasn't gonna work, but I didn't wanna admit I was wrong. Sorry, Geek Squad is a great environment. Then again, YMMV, as the job was great before we got new leaders who didn't know how to act or run the department. Busting my boss off at a company where I was effectively on call 24 hours a day for 3 years, leading development of core products. My boss constantly told me I was wrong about things, only to come back 2 months later to tell people to do what I told them to 2 months before, but now claiming it was his idea, blaming me for every mistake in the product, including those that were his ideas, and refusing to let me get around to doing those things I was actually hired to do, because there was a chronic backlog of things to do, those were bad enough, but the time he flat out told me that he didn't give a crap about my career progression, or anyone else's on my teams. when he cancelled our participation in conferences so that we could slave away on a project we'd already come close to completing. Yeah, that was bad. We lost 3 people on a team of 4. On the core product, about half the staff has turnover, and yet the company insists that nothing is wrong and that the guy is a great leader. Yep, going to be a reference for another guy who's leaving tomorrow. Our bosses, after luring a lot of our employees with a generous holiday schedule, forced everyone to come into work on the 4th of July and the 5th, which we also had scheduled off. That one was rough. I work part-time at a university library while I attend school. I sit at the checkout desk information desk. My boss, after one of us not saying goodbye to her one night, decided that us college students don't know how to sit at a desk and answer basic library questions. So now she sits down there every other hour and criticizes our every move. When it's the middle of summer and only 7 people are in the library, crap like this makes me want to quit my freaking job. We can't even read a freaking book at the desk at the library. It made me realize that she takes this crap way too seriously, and that has made me care even less. A satellite TV provider cancelled the bonuses for a 2-month competition in the last couple weeks for a group of their customer service reps. We were busting our butts helping out new customers that had problems and really turned around customer satisfaction scores. We never saw a bonus from that incentive. The company pulled the same crap later on in the year, completely reneging on a bonus. This company disavowed incentives multiple times and managers knowingly miscalculated bonuses even though it was printed on literature given to employees. I was only there a year and a half. Terrible morale. Company owner left on a 2-week vacation to Chile without telling anyone. It was a small marketing firm with about 7 employees. I texted him on Monday morning around 11:30 am, asking where he was. He stayed out late drinking pretty frequently and often didn't roll in until 11 am. He informed me he was on vacation and put me in charge for the next 2 weeks, probably because I was lucky enough to be the first person to text him. He missed 2 client meetings and 1 campaign pitch, all of which went okay and we managed without him. I even signed on a new account and had all the paperwork completed and was working on brand new campaign ideas to show him when he returned. He only called twice to check in, showed up 2 weeks later and declared that the company was bankrupt and we were all out of jobs. So yeah, that was an instant morale killer. They replaced the Pepsi and Coke and coffee machines with fricking water and Soap Life water machines. There was literally a riot in the break room. You do not deny overnight workers their caffeine. I worked as a consultant for a company. After a few weeks I quickly found out this one guy had his own one-man automation department, and he was a top-tier coder, could whip out solutions in hours that other developers would languish 4 weeks on. I also found out that nearly every department used his tool and services to automate their processes. At some point halfway through my project, they fired him and got rid of his tool. Almost immediately all the company metrics tanked, in most cases 30-50%. After a few weeks the company was desperate and asked for him to come back. He told them to frick off as he interviewed for their biggest competitor and they offered him 2x his original salary there. They ended up hiring another person who wasn't nearly as good to replace him. Then another person and then another. When I left and the department had around 10 people and they still hadn't gotten their metrics to back to before they let the original guy go. And almost all their departments they were losing staff left and right as people were stressed out trying to do more work that was previously automated. There was going to be a $1,500 bonus if the company landed a certain client. I'd been working there about 6 weeks. They had replaced 4 full-time software testers with me, a 20 hours week student who wrote automated tests and was well on my way to run more tests than the 4 full-time employees could do. I didn't get the bonus because I was just a part-time employee. From then on I felt like if I wasn't important enough to get a $1,500 bonus, my job must not be important enough to care about too much. They gave us all a nice raise because so many people were leaving to go work at a competitor that paid more. Then management changed around and when it came time for our scheduled, smaller, annual COLA raise they said that our previous raise was just to get us through till the COLA and they were taking away our previous raise and making us pay part of it back. But at least we could pay it back over several paychecks. So many people gave their 2 weeks notice that day and the next that they changed their mind within a week. Company I worked for has had several. They killed meetings where everyone could get on the same page, simply because the boss couldn't handle public constructive criticism. They changed the methods by which pay tip sharing worked for supervisors without notice and attempted short-sighted pay structure changes to the employees. When the employees figured this out, it was at first denied. Then we were told it was none of our concern even though it affected all of our pay. Mandatory overtime. 7 days a week, 12-hour days. Stated that we were purposely not hitting his physically impossible goals just to suck up overtime, even though no one wanted it. This went on for months. He'd also fire people dozens at a time. The checks were nice, but I had to get out of there, and for the only time in my life, I quit a job without another one lined up. When I worked there, they preferred you to have some sort of technical background. Last I heard, they burned through so many people they were hiring anyone. Also, for some reason he wanted to take our chairs from us. He thought sitting equals not working hard. We worked on an assembly line. While often I would have to walk around, there would be long stretches of times where sitting made sense. But okay, whatever. He extended this philosophy to the engineers who had desk jobs though, lol. It seems like a small thing. The company I worked for, I was one of 3 salespeople. The operations manager, who was my line manager too, insisted that when I was in the office, with just him and 4 others who were dressed casual, had to wear a tie. Said it to me in front of the others. He didn't wear a tie. We were in an industry where relationships with customers made business suits and ties were not normal. So frick him. I wore in the most horrific ties I could find. Christmas ones and summer ones colorblind people wouldn't be seen dead in. Shiny ones with fish on. He challenged me on it and I asked him to put it in writing explaining the reason for it and to show me where it was on my contract. He backed down. I left shortly afterwards to a rival company and made it my business to wreck them. Worked at a very dodgy debt management company a few years ago and I was stuck for work and it's all I could get at the time. Management were awful. Most days at least one employee would leave sobbing and they seemed to really get a kick out of it. After a meeting where one girl stood her ground and told them she felt she was being bullied, they decided to bring this up in a team meeting. One manager's exact words were, "We've been told by a team member that we come across as bullies. So please, if you feel like we're bullying you or anyone else, put your hand up now." Yup, we were in complete silence for at least a minute. I eventually got sacked as I was asking too many questions and discovered where their money was actually going. Had a boss that got upset when nobody answered his question quick enough on a conference call. So he told all of us techs to bring in our uniforms and tools the next day and he would decide who stays and who leaves. He only fired 1 person that day, but the rest of us found other jobs and quit within the next couple weeks. So he ended up having hundreds of clients and only 4 techs, his family, to do all the work. My co-worker lost his dog and came into work teary-eyed. Our manager looked at him, asked him what's wrong and then proceeded to go on a 30-minute rant about him needing to toughen up and it's just a stupid animal. Go buy another dumb dog. Needless to say, she no longer works for the company. We had a great season. He made a lot of money. He made enough money to pay all the bills and salaries for the year and about $150,000 extra. A few months later he says we aren't doing well and needs to cut everyone's pay. We are all subcontracted, so he thought he could get away with it. It lasted 1 week as we told him if he did it again we were gone. Was working for EB Games when GameStop bought them. 20% of any warranty and $1 for every subscription sold went into your paycheck as commission. And you'd never feel dirty selling the things, because Edge Magazine, EB's answer to Game Informer, and their extended warranties were legit and fairly priced. GameStop buys the company. First thing they do, nix the commissions. You still have to sell the stuff, of course. I'll never forget the first meeting I had with GameStop as a manager. They really drilled how profitable those things are to the company. Soon after came the threats of reduced hours if you didn't hit quotas, mandated by corporate. Yep, frick the messed up. 1. Made it so that only restockers could go to the storage area and bring out items that needed to be restocked. This pretty much created chaos because there was usually only one restocker per shift, and when things got really busy, everything slowed down and made things worse for everyone. 2. Not allowing cashiers to leave the registers, even if it wasn't busy. 3. Cutting hours from employees that had been there for years. 4. When some of the staff learned that they were glorified temporary workers and that they'd eventually be forced to leave, they tried to make us feel better by telling us to reapply after 6 months and maybe we'd be hired back. Number 3 is a dirty tactic used in business. Cut hours of somebody to make them quit on their own. The replacements are already hired, trained, and cost less. I was a hard worker, like an extremely hard worker. One day a supervisor asked why I wasn't working at my usual pace, so I told him I was facing homelessness if I couldn't find somewhere to live. He said, "Hey, well, I really need my superstar out here. I depend on you getting a lot done for me." He couldn't care any less about my problem. I was an employee who made him look good because I got results, and not a human being. I never worked hard again, and personally undermined the work ethic of everyone I came in contact with. I didn't have to learn that particular lesson a second time. I've learned that busting your butt for a company gets you nothing except taken advantage of. Now I take my sweet time and slack off like the rest of the employees, and I get praised for it, lol. Made us start staying open until 4 o'clock on Fridays instead of closing at noon, and didn't increase our pay to accommodate for it. My favorite is summer hours. I now work 10-hour days and then inevitably have a Friday emergency, so I work Friday too. Half our maintenance crew works 10-hour days split up between Sunday through Wednesday and Thursday through Sunday. Everyone works on Sunday. This doesn't go over very well in the Bible Belt. The head honcho established a new "if you have cell phones out you get fired" policy at a minimum wage campus bookstore. I, along with 15 employees and 5 managers, have quit in the past 2 months. I worked at a pizza place a few years ago. The pay was incredible for the job. $6 an hour flat rate, tips, and 52 cents a mile. I was making like $600 a week after taxes just to deliver pizza. Everyone loved the job. The owner decided to decrease the pay to $7.25 while in the store, $2.13 on the road, and $1 per run. This resulted in about a $200 decrease every check. Half the drivers left. Hired a dude straight out of college and gave him more money than 90% of the people keeping the plant running. The guy can barely tie his shoes and has been moved between 6 departments over the course of a year because he can't do anything worth a crap. But he's boss with a higher up, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't help morale when you tell people there's no budget for a promised raise and then hire a dipshit. We had a bonus program instituted last year around March, to be tabulated early January. It pretty much vanished. No formal announcement on getting or not getting the bonus or anything. One employee asked and was told we made too many mistakes. I had to make deductions, which wasn't an established rule for the program. The rest of us were wise enough to realize it was all bulls from the beginning and weren't surprised on the 180 on the program. We were supposed to have another go at the bonus this year, but it's almost August and we haven't heard crap. We always jokingly ask each other, does this affect my bonus? Offered company branded cash as an incentive to work harder and clear claims more quickly. People busted their asses, worked and paid overtime X. We were all salary to earn this cash because it could be used for things like TVs, vacation and a million other things. I accumulated close to 1,400 of this fake money busting my butt to get enough for the cash bonus. They never let us redeem them. After our busy season was over, they just let it drop. Everyone kept asking about it and they would blow it off with emails about updating you soon. Never happened. A bunch of people had donated their extra company cash to one worker who was using it to get items for a charity auction. We continued to bother the company. They never let us redeem them for anything. It was total balls. I quit shortly after. I just walked out one day. When I got home I blasted a long, blistering company-wide email criticizing them for the lack of respect for their workers. According to those I know that still work there, very few due to the wave of turnover I apparently triggered. I am a legend. No one ever got anything for their code blue bucks. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.